All right, hello everyone. I've been asked lots about what I do to prep my bike for each ride. So bear in mind, this is specific to out here in the desert. I do strictly a lot of sand dune riding, so this is how I prep my bike. I hope you find it useful. Let's get into checking. When I check the bike, I go kind of a front to back approach. I go through and I do this the same way every time so I don't miss anything that could prevent me enjoying my ride the next day. So as I walk in, first just kind of take a look at the bike, make sure there's no big leaks underneath. Big issues going on. There shouldn't be. If you maintain your bike properly, you know your bike, there should be no problems. But I'll look, especially around, see if there's any oil leaking, see if everything looks like it's in good condition and how it is from the last time I put my bike away. And then I sort of start top down. So I start at the top, just move, make sure I got free play in the throttle and it's proper. Always check your gas. I've seen guys, you don't know, but a friend of mine, get burned by not having gas. So check, make sure I filled it up. If not, I'll fill up my bike, put that back. Check my rad fluid, and for your rad fluid, it kind of comes off in two stage. If you look down inside, if you shake, you should see fluid just to the top of sort of the grills inside your rad. If you overfill it, it's just gonna come out when you're running hot. So you should be able to see liquid. If you're not, top it up. If it's consistently down, it's probably your radiator cap that's shot if you don't have an obvious leak anywhere else. And just pay attention to that. I check that every single ride, top it up every required. I use water wetter. That's because I'm not really concerned about cold weather out here. Your experience and what you need may vary. Okay, moving on. I kind of look at the front, make sure all my wires are good, nothing has come apart. And I'll start with my forks. You need to have the bike up on a center stand for this next bit. Just clean up some of my fuel I goobed over. Now what you need is you need a T20 Torx. And you're gonna go on your fork here. You can see there's a little screw, and this is just your air valve release screw. All you're gonna do is undo this. And you may hear a little bit of air come out. If you haven't done it at all, you may hear a lot of air come out. Don't freak out. You're not messing with your shocks. You're just letting the extra air out. Okay, nothing on that one. Just remove it, put it back in. Okay, same with the other side. This side, you can either use a size 10 speeder or a Torx, depending. That one's even pretty tight, so I'm using my size 10 T-handle. And again, I'm just gonna undo it. You don't need to kill these, putting them back in. Okay, see if there's any air. No air coming out, so that's good. Kind of have a look at the condition. And I'll put it back in using the Torx socket. You might have to mess around a little bit here depending on your bars. All right, now next up, it depends on where you're riding and how your setup is. You can check your pressure in your shocks now. I normally do it the morning of my ride, just because temperature changes can actually affect by a couple of PSI, and I'm a little bit OCD with that, so I like to have it done on the morning of. I normally run, this is my 2018.5 factory edition 450 SXF. For myself and my weight, which is probably too much, but I'm weighing at 210 with all my gear. I run 148 PSI in the front, and I like that. And then you can set your clickers from there. I'll do another video on how to set up your suspension, because actually suspension probably makes the most fundamental difference in your handling for the bike. I'll continue moving down. All I look at down here is I'll come down to my tire. I'll look at my disc, make sure nothing looks all messed up. Normally if you're running in the sand, there's not gonna be big problems with this. I'll check my pads, so I'll just have a look, make sure I've still got some pad life left in there. I'll check my hookups. This is just for some of my Voyager Pro. That's all fine, make sure nothing's loose. I'll have a quick look again for my tires. I'll check the condition of my tire, make sure there's no cracks, that it hasn't lipped out or anything. I'll check quickly, just have a look at my spokes. I'll have a quick look to make sure the tire actually spins true, so you can just lift the front. Have a look and see if it's spinning and wobbling all over the place, just means your spokes are out of true and you'll have to adjust your spokes. Normally that's not going to happen unless you hit something or really bash yourself up. And then I'll check the tire pressures in the morning just before I ride. Now for sand riding, I personally run 12 PSI in the front and then anywhere between 8 and 12 PSI in the back, depending on the sand conditions that day and how it feels. Now that's what I like for the grip I want. Each person's different. I would recommend you start with 12 and 12 and kind of play around from there. Don't make more than a 2 PSI change at a time. Same goes for your shocks. And just adjust and see. Lower gives you more traction. It can feel a little greasier depending on how it's going. That's all I want to say about that. Okay, next I'll come back. Check the condition of my seat. Make sure there's no problems. I'll check my air box. So here I'll just look. My filter, it's getting to where it needs to be cleaned, but it's still okay for another run or two. You can see that it's starting to get some sand goobed up on there. I'll run that probably one more run and clean it after tomorrow's ride. And I'll do a video on that at some point on how to clean your filter as well, I guess, if that helps people out. Put this back on. Or not. There we go. don't know why this is being so difficult all of a sudden. It's because it's the weekend and wants to be tough, and then they'll tap. There we go. Back in and on. Perfect. Okay, next thing I'll do, I'll come to my chain. Now, for me, every time after I wash my bike, I lube my chain. But in the sand, if you got lots of lube on your chain, that's just going to destroy all your sprockets. So I'll have a quick look on the Noda sprockets. I'll look here. This one's still got life left in it. If it starts looking like waves, it's time to change out your sprocket. I'll check my front sprocket. And my front sprocket's getting there, but it's still good for at least another few rides. All right, now for my chain, I leave it fairly heavily chain lubed, but then what I do just before my ride is I clean it. Now in the sand, it's different, okay? In the sand, you wanna run a chain that's fairly dry, just so otherwise you make like a grinding paste. It's just gonna kill your sprockets faster. If you're running anywhere else, you can have your chain nice and lubed up. So all I do, take some WD-40, just sit here, spray down the chain real quick with WD-40 to clean some of the extra oil off, or chain lube off. And then all I'm gonna do now, first top safety tip, do not move it counterclockwise or it's gonna pull your hands into your sprocket. I don't think that would work out good for anyone. So I just go always counterclockwise, just hold here nice and easy, and just wipe the excess off, okay? Be very aware your fingers are. You know, but lots of guys, there's lots of cases you can hit the internet. Lots of dudes have hurt themselves bad or lost fingers running the bike while they're trying to lube their chain, anything like that. I'll do the underside as well, it doesn't really matter. All you're trying to do here is you just wanna get the extra grease off. While I'm doing this, I'll check my chain tension, all right? And what you want is you want, for this bike, 50 to 55 mils at the back of this chain guard displacement. Now, there's two ways to do this. I do this enough. You know, my handy ruler that I marked up, I just took a old ruler, put some marks on it. So I'll just take this, and I'll just give it a pull. So here, I'm just starting to get out of spec. So actually, I'll probably tighten my chain up a little bit because that's a little bit looser than I like to ride with. Okay, I'm sitting at about 70 mils. So I'll do that in a moment. So I guess, hey, there'll be a video on how to adjust your chain shortly. Another good tip you can use though, is you can just take, if you're in a jam and you don't have, you know, your ruler, take 3 fingers. And about 3 fingers, okay, that's pretty good for chain tension. If you got way looser than that, time to adjust your chain. And if you're way under that, well, time to loosen off. If it's too tight, all you're gonna do is you just stretch your chain out too soon. Too loose, you just get slapping around and coming off, which will cause badness. So I'm gonna pause this part and then adjust my chain, and then we'll be back into it. All right, I'm back. I've adjusted the chain now, so we're right on that 55 to 58 mil that they spec out for this bike. So I'm happy with that chain adjustment. Okay, I'll give it a spin, make sure there's no kinks, no badness going on. If you have a clip type chain, I check, make sure the clip's good. Now this next bit is important, okay? Come to your sprocket, check your sprocket for wear, but the other part you want to check now is KTMs are known for these coming loose, your sprocket bolts, okay? So first off, when I change a sprocket, which you will at some point on the bike, make sure you use some Loctite in there. Now the next thing I'm gonna do is, all I do is I just spin the bike a little bit, okay? And I just go through and check. And remember, I'm gonna take a size 13 wrench, and I'm just gonna check and make sure these are tight. You don't have to heave on it, you don't wanna crack the Loctite, but I just wanna make sure none are loose. And if they are loose, tighten them right up, torque them up, you know, put some Loctite in there. I've seen it happen once where a guy lost enough nuts that his actually sprocket came off and messed up his hub and, you know, cost a bit of money after that. Once I'm done that part, just gonna spin the tire again, make sure it's spinning true, make sure my spokes are true. About every 5 rides or so, I check my spokes and make sure they're torqued up. This is looking good. I'll come around this side of the bike now. I'll check my brakes. So I'm just looking to make sure I've got some brake pad left, which I do. You know, I don't use a lot of brake in the sand, so my brakes tend to last quite a while. Have a look, make sure there's no badness going on this side. Make sure there's nothing leaking from my shock. Now I'll come down here to my oil, and I'll have a look, and I'll see how my oil level is. I'm not sure if you can see that. Let me just grab a light to help that out. Awesome, light's dead. Let's grab the other light to see if I can help that out. So what I'll do in here is I'll look, I'm just a little low, so I'll top it up. It's because I've been riding hard, so I've probably been chewing a bit of oil. Where you want to be sitting is at least, you know, I'm okay here. I'm not hurting for oil, but I like running it on the higher side of this bubble. But I'll have a look. And if you start losing oil every ride, it's a sign of either some sort of leak going down, or it's definitely time for you to do your top end. So those are just kind of things to think about and focus on. After that, I'll come across, I'll check the engine, see if there's any leaks, check for coolant leaks. That all seems good. I'll check my fins on the, you know, radiators, make sure they aren't all bashed up. I'll have a look through the rest of the bike, just make sure it's all fine. So all I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna top up just a little bit of oil to make sure I'm ready for my ride tomorrow. And that's pretty much it. I checked the tires, I checked down, and I do this every single ride, okay? Make sure, because then, you know, the last thing you want is to get out somewhere and not be able to go ride with your buddies, or worse, have your bike break down in the desert, which can turn into a monumental pain trying to get it out of there, depending on where you break down. That's really it. Last thing I'll do is I'll run it just to make sure, you know, make sure it starts, make sure my battery's good, and that's it. You're ready to go and ride, you know? I guess the last thing I'd say is while I'm doing that, I'm looking to make sure no bolts have fallen out. Check your seat bolts, make sure they're still there. And that's it, then you're ready to rock. A little bit of prep time means more time in the saddle, enjoying your ride on the day of, and not messing around trying to, you know, get a broken bike working. All right, I hope you guys find this helpful. I hope it helps you get ready for the sand. If you got any videos that you want to see, you know, or ideas or stuff you want to know about bikes, especially KTMs, put them in the comments below. I'll see if I can get to doing a video on them. I'll do something about bike setup at some point. Again, specifically sand oriented, because that's what I do. That's it. Thanks a lot, and ride hard, man. Hope you guys enjoy it.